Hey everyone, welcome to PunkCast. My name is William Maxwell. I'm a student of Web3 and the owner of Punk9537. Cryptopunks are 10,000 uniquely generated characters stored permanently on the Ethereum blockchain. No punk is the same. This is a show dedicated to celebrating the punks behind the punk. My hope for this podcast is that we capture the essence of the punk culture, elevate the brand and the individual behind the punk. One last thing. Projects discussed on the show is not financial advice. Crypto and NFTs are a volatile and risky asset class. Please always do your own research. Other than that, let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of PunkCast. Today we've got Punk8536. He's a 3 Atty with shadow beard, shaved head, and eye patch. He's a creator of Barefoot Parrots and BlokPax, a Web3 collectible project leading innovative ways to monetize Web3 IP. Please welcome Frenchie to the show. Frenchie, how are you? GM.
Doing well, Max. GM to you. Really GM to you. You're first thing in the morning over there.
It is. I just don't have my coffee yet, so I don't know how I'm going to survive to the podcast.
First I drink the coffee, then I do the things, as a poster we have hanging up in our office.
So where are you based? So you work out of an office, or?
So we do. We have a full-fledged office, so I kind of have joined Web3 and started doing my Web3 stuff. I actually spun a SWAT team out of my agency. I have a legacy agency business. We have a patent on lookalike ad targeting for Web2 and been working on that for over a decade now. Got the patent about 7 or 8 years ago. And so I just, was able to pull over a team of devs and biz folks and really kind of have a running start as it relates to Web3.
Oh, amazing. Well, why don't you kick us off then? I guess maybe perhaps just an introduction to, your background and how you sort of arrived in Web3.
Sure. So I am in South Carolina, and I grew up in South Carolina. Got an accounting degree in college and I actually got a job with Price Waterhouse and thought that they may send me to some big city, and they ended up sending me to the capital city of South Carolina, so not very far from where I grew up.
Where did you start off? Were you in audit or tax or something? Or
I was in the audit and financial services practice is what I was in originally, and ended up when I left there, went to NetBank, was in one of the first internet-only banks, and kind of got to see the inner workings of a lot of that stuff, and actually did my first startup right around the time of the .com boom, and then ended up going into Web2. So kind of had some success along the way and kind of allowed me to springboard into kind of what it is that we're doing now. But grew up in the South. I have a little bit of a unique story as it relates to Web3. There aren't a lot of the minority presence in Web3 is here in the United States is relatively small. And, my mom was a product of Jim Crow segregation here in the U.S. She went to segregated schools until she was in the 11th grade. And then we had desegregation, put her into a regular high school here in the South. And I'm literally the first person from my family to go to college. You hear a lot of people say that, but I am like literally the first one. And so coming from that type of background, was able to have a certain degree of success. And just one of the things that really drew me into Web3 and kind of pulled me to this space was just the idea of the level playing field. Now, make no mistake, coming into anything with more money, more people that all of that gives you advantages for sure. But in the true spirit of Web3, where code is the law of what a smart contract will do, whether it's a lending protocol, whether DeFi protocol, whatever it is, just a really level playing field, and just something that was just immediately drawn to, and still look at that as one of the defining ethos of Web3, and one of the things that I hope we don't lose as we move towards more and more popularity in the space and more mainstream adoption. I hope that we can stay true to some of this core. I know we can't keep it all, but I'm hoping that we can keep enough of it to where we can stay true to the ethos of Web3, which is really one of the things that drew me so aggressively to the space.
Mm. When you talk about level playing field, could you give some examples of that? Because there's a lot of things that sort of come to my mind when I sort of ventured into the space as well. But what does that sort of mean for you?
Yeah, so much of it is just that, again, I'm not talking about necessarily the ability to go buy a CryptoPunk. That's not a level playing field anymore. But what is level is that if you apply yourself in this space and you build the right type of protocol and you solve real problems. I mean, we have anonymous teams that have done amazing things. We don't know who these people are. Now, there are some instances where I personally would not do certain things if the team were anonymous. But at the same time, that anonymity in a lot of things, I think, has allowed the space to advance forward. And so I don't know how much more level a playing field could get when you literally don't know who's on the other side of the code base, right? You don't know if that's a
Absolutely.
hedge fund trust baby or a trust fund baby, or if that's some person in um, rural Thailand that's barely got an internet connection and they've been reading up how to write Solidity for the last 5 years. You don't know.
Mm.
It really is this truly level playing field when it comes to innovation and innovating on the tech and that sort of things. And even going back into like my early days of in Web 1, that playing field was not level at all. I mean, the servers were so expensive. Just having the access, the ability to build something back then. Now with the tools that we have, and even in many places where people are otherwise relatively poor, and that includes in the United States and globally, they still have access to a lot of the base tools that you need to develop in Web3. And so I think that's I don't know, it's just a really attractive piece of the puzzle for me, and it's one of the things that definitely has drawn me to the space, and it's something that excites me overall is the accessibility, the level playing field that we have. And again, I just hope we don't lose that.
Amazing. And so maybe talk a little bit more about how you came into crypto specifically and your transition to NFTs. Like, what was your sort of onboarding journey? What sort of interested you, and how did you get in?
So I came in through the idea of digital asset ownership and collectibles. I've been a collector of things my entire life. I used to love, I enjoyed the game of baseball. I was a baseball card collector when I was in the seventh grade. I was the president of our middle school baseball card collectors club. There was kind of a peak of the trading card market here in the United States back in the late 80s and going into the early 90s. And but I never left. I always enjoyed it. And then as I got business success, a lot of the things that I was drawn to was collecting cool stuff. And so I've kind of always done that. And I feel like I understood the human behavior around collecting and collectibles really well. And then when I really grasped this idea of digital ownership, it was really obvious to me very quickly. And so I won't say that I was super, super early. I didn't have CryptoPunks in 2018, but I was in before the pump, before things really blew up. And it really just being drawn to the space as far as digital ownership. This is actually the punks I own today are kind of a batch that I got recently when the market crashed back down, because I actually did sell the punks that I had, because I follow a simple rule in collecting. If a collectible gets, if I wouldn't buy the collectible at the price I could sell it for, I sell it. And that's what I've always done with baseball cards. It's what I do with sports memorabilia. It's what I do with comics, video games. And I did the same thing. And I was looking at my CryptoPunks when they were super expensive, and I was like, yeah, I wouldn't pay that for it. And so I sold the ones that I had. And but then when we had the big drop and everything nuked down to 3-digit ETH, we had that 1 week where punks were under $50,000 again, and I loaded the bag back up, and over the course of that 1 week, I bought all 6 of the ones I have right now.
So, just out of curiosity, so how long were you trading cards for? Like, is that something that you just grew up with since the 90s and sort of carried all the way through?
Yeah, so really my whole life, and just like anything else, when guys grow up, their toys they still play with toys, but the toys get bigger, I think is the saying. As I had some success in business, the cards and things that I was able to collect got a little bit bigger. I mean, I've got some stuff that I'm super proud of. And
What's some of your favorite cards that you got in the bag?
So my favorite cards are, I am a huge Jackie Robinson fan. So Jackie Robinson and his 1947 Leaf is my favorite card of all time. I also really like his 1952 a lot. It's a really cool picture. It's an iconic red background on that card, but the 47 Leaf is my absolute favorite card. and really proud to own a number of those. But again, I go into memorabilia and stuff too. I mean, I own one of Tom Brady's Super Bowl touchdown balls. So that's a pretty cool thing. There's only 24 of those in the world, and most of them are probably held by the receivers that caught them. And I've got jerseys from players. I've got bats, different things that I've collected. And before COVID, a lot of this stuff, I mean, we had a major pump. You saw the pump we had in crypto. We had a pump not all that dissimilar to that in the trading card market that was fueled by COVID, the money printer, and everybody being locked up and not really having a lot that they could do. We definitely saw a big boom. We saw a lot of records get smashed in trading cards, and so that was a fun and interesting time.
So what time frame did you actually enter to NFTs? Was it just at that time when COVID hit?
So I would have to go back because I'm not using that wallet anymore, because I used to have my punks on a wallet where I had previously put it in MetaMask, and so in my browser. I'm trying to think. I think I bought my first punk, and I bought it because it looked like me. I don't remember the number. He looked like me. He looked exactly like my the one I have now with the patch, except he had glasses instead of the patch. I want to say I bought him in November of 2020. 2020 was our COVID year, right? Yeah, I think it was November of 2020. Yeah, I think that's right.
That's pretty early. That's pretty early because the bull run was sort of mid-year 21.
Yep.
And was just out of curiosity then, so was CryptoPunks your first NFT in the space?
My first NFT was actually a portrait of Mike Trout that I bought on OpenSea. Mike Trout's I don't know if you're a baseball fan, but he's a modern baseball player. I thought it looked really cool. I was actually just reading how it all worked, and I said, "Oh, that's a cool look." When I bought it, and it turned out to just be a total rug. It disappeared from my wallet a few days later. And I was like, what the hell happened there? So I very quickly learned what a rug was. And I assume that token is probably still in that wallet. And then I did, the CryptoPunks were my first meaningful NFT purchase. Yes. And then I was relatively early in the Bored Apes. I bought some Bored Apes, and I bought them when they were right around 1.5 to 2 ETH. So they were getting that momentum, but they definitely weren't anywhere near what we thought they were, or anywhere near what they ended up becoming. So, and then I'm trying to think as far as other stuff at the time. I mean, I didn't buy a ton of junk. Like from collecting and being a collector for so long, one of the things that you learn that you have to kind of focus. So I came into digital assets pretty well with that same mindset that I needed to focus. So I didn't just chase a lot of the stuff that was pumping at any given time. I'm not saying I didn't have any of it. I mean, there were a few projects I thought they looked decent, and I bought them, and they ended up not doing great. But I definitely was not someone who just had tons and tons of what I would call just junk.
Amazing. So maybe let's unpack that a little bit too. I mean, because I think there is a lot of similarities from collecting cards. Because I grew up collecting basketball cards myself,
100%.
And I think when I found out about NFTs, it just made sense, right? I understood the collector sort of mindset, and it's almost like collectability is on steroids, right? Just because of how liquid it could be, and how fast it can move.
Yep.
But it'd be good to sort of interesting to sort of hear from you in terms of how you went about and started assessing and looking into CryptoPunks and how you sort of felt that was a quality sort of project. Like how did you form that opinion?
So the first thing is that I felt like by the time I got here, they had enough of the narrative that I understood that they were kind of the clear front runner. And that doesn't mean that you always stay the front runner, but there was just really nothing else at the time that I looked at that I thought had anywhere near the narrative that CryptoPunks had. At that point, we did know they weren't necessarily the first. That was a reading, because I've read back a lot of the punk history and stuff. I mean, there was a period of time where really even the CryptoPunk founders held themselves out as the first until somebody said, no, you weren't the first. This was the first. And they're like, okay, we're not the first. And now we have a lot more of that history kind of getting unpacked, and we know kind of where they are. But they definitely were the first to gain any level of widespread relevance. And so from a historical context, they were early enough. They're definitely the first one to grab the attention of really the whole space. They were that aspirational asset for those that were in the space, especially as the price began to rise. And when I looked at it and looked at, where they were as the precursor to so much, I mean, everything that we saw really in 2021. And when I was buying, it hadn't really kicked off yet, but at that time that they were still, for me, it was pretty clear and obvious that they were the leader. And just like in trading cards, you have Michael Jordan cards. There's some of his products. You have vintage baseball, Jackie Robinson, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth. You have these grails that greatly outperform everything else. And so with that mindset, I pretty quickly said, I think these are going to be the thing that's going to do that. And so that's where I put my money. I was pretty confident with it at the time, and I'm even more confident today. I mean, I say it all the time that I really believe in 10 years, CryptoPunks will have $1 million floor. And I don't know, it's not going to be a straight line, but I think in 10 years, it'll cost $1 million to get a CryptoPunk. I really do.
Amazing. I that's going to be a great quote for PunkCast. So I'm gonna be tweeting that one soon. So what was your entry price back then? So November 20 would have been pretty low, right?
Yeah, I'd have to look back and try to remember.
Yeah.
I want to say in US dollars, I want to say it was somewhere around $10 or $12,000, I think.
Yeah.
And then I think I bought the last one that I bought. I paid like $40,000 for it, and that one kind of made me swallow I was like, that's a lot of money for a JPEG, right? Yeah. So I mean, we kind of saw kind of where they went and what the big run up did. But yeah,
absolutely. And I think I remember that narrative as well, right? I mean, everyone was talking about CryptoPunks being the first NFT, and then all these other ones came out that said that wasn't the first. There was like Ethereum and all these other ones. But I think in my mind, CryptoPunk still is the first one that really triggered the wave of an identity PFP play. All the other ones beforehand
100%.
wasn't identity. And so, they honed in on a specific spot, Gen Art, on-chain, everything else, and that just triggered like another massive wave. And so I don't think any other collection can make that claim. And so, so absolutely historical and culturally relevant to the things that we're sort of doing. Yep. And also at that time as well, like Frenchie, were you going into community discords? Were you sort of how deep was your research? Were you just doing?
I was really on the outside, kind of looking in. I was not. I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit older, so Discord was not a platform that I was using really at the time. I bought Bored Apes and didn't go in their Discord, so everything that I was seeing was basically on Twitter, and then as far as the punks, there was enough that I could research externally. There were interviews I could watch. There were YouTube videos from the founders. There was a fair amount of content as far as a content repository on the punks that I was able to go back and consume. A lot of the other stuff that was really just shaping up was really, there wasn't a ton on it. And I mean, I've got misses too. I mean, I was right there when Art Blocks started, and I faded Art Blocks, and I regret that tremendously. Like today, one of my favorite collections is the Chromie Squiggles. And I did not, I mean, they were right there. And I totally didn't touch it. I was right there. I had Fidenzas open on the screen, plenty of ETH to buy them, and just didn't, because that was one where my background in collecting probably did me a little bit of harm, because I didn't see the significance at the time with the on-chain art and that sort of thing. I saw the supply. I saw the fact that it didn't do anything from an identity standpoint. I totally discounted, because it was what I looked at it and said, look, is you take an artist who paints a picture, you take somebody, they work for months to paint one picture, whereas a digital artist works for months and writes a code that spits out unlimited amount of generative art. And I discounted that. I discounted the value of that. And I totally missed. I don't own a Fidenza. I want one. I almost bought one at the same time I was buying those Punks, but the Punks were more attractive price wise, so I put it all into the Punks that I wanted to spend at the time. I didn't get one. I was kind of had it earmarked. I was going to try to pick one up, and then they ended up pumping, and they're kind of back at a level where I just right now wouldn't. There's other stuff I think I could do probably to get a little bit better return right now on it. But I still love. I wish I owned a Fidenza. I wish I owned more Squiggles, but I missed it. It was right there, and I think my old collector brain led me astray on those.
I did as well, mate. So don't feel too bad. But just out of curiosity, like, what do you see in, I guess, art blocks and generative art now that you find interesting that you didn't?
So I don't think it's all of it, right? Because there is a lot of supply being produced, but I think that what Snowfro did he did everything right with Squiggles, with the on-chain way that the art generates, live on-chain, the live at mint reveal, all of that stuff really innovative. And I think where the Fidenza collection is so interesting to me now is that now that I have a large amount of generative art that I can compare it to, I can see the simple beauty in Fidenzas and what they achieved. I mean, they're gorgeous. They look like something that someone really created, every single one of them by hand. There are a few of them that I would say are kind of ugly to me aesthetically. That's obviously a subjective, but there are a few that I would probably call ugly, but not many. And some of them are just beautiful. And they looked cool at the time. I just discounted them because of some of the other reasons that I said. I was like, I'm not going to buy this. This isn't going to do anything. Anybody could write this code again tomorrow and do the same thing. Well, apparently they can't, because there's really not a whole lot of other stuff I look at and say, wow, that's anywhere nearly as attractive and cool as Fidenzas. And then the Squiggles they're just iconic, right? They started the whole thing. So they mean more than just the little squiggly lines, but still, if you get some good aesthetic looking ones, the ones I have, I don't have anything super spectacular. I've got a fuzzy, but I would say that all of mine are aesthetic floors. They look good. They don't have real wonky looking pattern to them or stuff. And so, but I'm a big fan. I wish I would have loaded the bags up on those. But I didn't.
No, that they are absolutely stunning. The Fidenzas, though. Yeah, so I think it's just instantly sort of recognizable, and I think in some ways has a lot of meme value, right? So I think it's going to accrue a lot of attention for the long term. And to be honest with you, most of the punks that I have on PunkCast as well, when we have a chat about Grails, Fidenza is basically on top of that list. So,
yep,
absolutely stunning collection.
Yep.
So talk to me about, I guess, your primary punk, 8536. So he's got an eye patch and he's got a beard. Talk to me why you've sort of selected him as your primary punk and how you came across him.
Well, I feel that he looks like me, other than the fact that I don't have an eye patch, but I do have terrible vision. So like I pay for the really thin lenses so that they can not make me look like I have Coke bottles, but my vision is awful and I have to wear bifocals. So I feel the patch is a pretty good reflection of that. I had, again, the one I had before, I got to go back and find his number. I wish I could tell you his number, but he looked very similar. Everything that had the shaved head, had the shadow beard, except he had glasses, and he was a little bit boring. The new one I don't think is boring. I think the patch gives him a little bit of pizzazz. So that's the one that I definitely kind of consider my main punk. I really like him a lot. I feel a lot stronger connection to him than I did the old one. That was kind of my identity when I first started building in Web3. I used that punk as my identity. I had him on not just on my Twitter, but any of the audio stuff we would put out, or we would always use him. And but this one, I like him a lot more. So much so that I don't even wear jewelry, and I did the NFTIF thing with him. So I figured that was a way I could take my otherwise floor punk and maybe give him a little bit of something that makes him a little bit more special. And maybe one day when my kids sell him, they'll sell him and the necklace as a pair at a big auction house or something.
He looks like a real badass punk with the eye patch for sure.
Yep.
But talk to me about NFTIF. Like, what was your thinking around minting that? Maybe if you could just explain what it is to the audience that might not know what NFTIF is.
Yeah, so Tiffany came in, and obviously they're part of the big Louis Vuitton group, and they're the jewelry arm of that business. So just a quintessential luxury good. And I do kind of buy into the narrative that is, when you get high-end art, when you get the punks, part of my narrative of them going to $1 million is just the status that they convey. And definitely that's what Tiffany is, because you could buy jewelry that's same style quality for a lot less. A lot of it is in the brand. And they were one of the first ones to come in and say, we're going to do something where we are going to take this iconic brand that we have, and we're going to take 250 or 300, I think it was 300 punks, or maybe it was 250. It's either 250 or 300. And we're going to allow you to buy this NFT from us, and we will create a pendant out of your punk. And they'll use different gemstones and stuff. And I looked at it and I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, that's I don't wear jewelry. I have no desire to own that, wear that, or flex that. I literally bought it because I thought to myself, this could be something that takes my floor punk and makes him something more than a floor punk if this holds the test of time. And so the NFT that they gave us, or not give us, that we bought, it was quite expensive.
What was the price again, Frenchie?
It was 30 ETH. 30 ETH to mint it. Yeah. And when they so what they'll do is, when they actually set all of the gemstones in the punk, they'll update that NFT with basically the map of what the pendant looks like with all the gemstones mapped. So I'll have that NFT with my punk on it, with their gemstone matching that made the pendant. And then I'll get the physical pendant itself. And depending on how they seal that, my plan as a collector, I don't plan to open it. So like if it's something I can look at without disturbing the packaging, I will. But if it's got like a real seal of any kind, I'm not even going to open it. And then again, the plan would be that at some point in the future, there are 10,000 punks. There's only 250 of them that were Tiffany punks. And even if they did this again, this would be the first time it was ever done. It was the first really big, Web3 collaboration with a brand of this caliber. And it may just be money that I totally wasted. We'll see. But at least I had a thesis when I bought it.
I think you might be onto something, mate. I mean, I would have loved to have bought, but I think the price point was just too high. But I think if you look at, how much is a, those 80, 83, 84 box of flares unopened with a potential sort of MJ in the box, right? They go for sure. Absolutely obscene amounts. And so I think your mentality around, getting the NFT box and just leaving it unopened might actually add a lot more value and premium to your punk if you do sell it.
Yeah, no, I think it could. I mean, it's it'll be interesting to see. Like it's a long-term play. It's even if the punks let's say the punks rip up again to a number where it passes my test where I'm like, I wouldn't buy them here. I need to sell them. If that were to happen, I would probably not sell that one, just simply because I need to hold him until that thesis has time to prove itself out, because I can't replace him. Like now that he's that NFT punk, I can't. If I sell him and I'm still holding that jewelry, I have to pair them back. That exact punk would have to get paired back up to have that value. So I just got to let that one play out, and I think that's a decades long type proposition.
So this looks like it's going to be for your forever punk. How many NFTs did you get? Just the one, or did you get a couple?
Just the one. I thought hard about doing my one trait, but it was so speculative and just so out of character for me to spend that much on a piece of jewelry. It was I just couldn't stomach doing another one. I was like, I'm just going to do this one. If it works, great. If it doesn't, not the end of the world.
Amazing. Mate, and I'm just looking at your bag now. So you've got actually 6 punks in the bag, and I see a one trait bold pipe punk. Mm-hmm. I think you got another. I think you got the Tassle head punk. Yeah. A few other ones as well, and I think you've got a dev punk as well. So talk us through. I guess your purchasing sort of thesis. I guess for these other 5 punks you have in the bag, which are really cool too.
Yeah. So I really like the. I like the long-term play on the female punks. And so I actually bought one that looks a lot like my wife, and she likes to work out and stuff. And so the one with the headband, that's actually the dev punk. That's I bought it. I knew it was a dev punk when I bought it, but I also bought it because kind of reminded me of her. She also has green eyes, and it has the green around the eyes. So there was just a lot there in the story around that one. The Tassle Punk reminded me actually of my youngest daughter, so that's why I grabbed that one. And then because she actually had this little tassel, it was pink, but it looked exactly like that tassel hat, except for hers was pink instead of green. But she used to wear it all the time when she was a little toddler. The female with the wild hair, that one I was just kind of drawn to it. I thought it was really cool, and then I had an opportunity to pair her up with her V1 twin, which I thought was neat. I know that's a polarizing topic in punk circles. I look at it as it is what it is. It's history, and you can think what you want to think about Frank rapping them, but it's blockchain doesn't lie. It's there. So for me, it was kind of neat to be able to at least pair up one twin set. Having not been an original claimant, not being there for that, the only way I could do it would via secondary market. And then the other one was actually, I just got him because he was cheap. It was for the trait. He had a Fedora, and he was just way underpriced at the time, so I just grabbed him.
Yeah, nice.
I think I went through them all there.
Yeah, no, it's really cool punk collection you got, and so I guess when you're looking across the space right now, like, is there anything you're particularly keeping an eye on of interest to you in this sort of bear market?
I don't want to shill, but I also will want to be honest. Like the project that I'm the most bullish on right now is one that we just released at BlokPax called the Lost Miners. We were able to, our engineering team, we actually set out and we were able to deploy and execute the final contract deployed to Ethereum proof of work. And we minted the entire token supply, instantly staked it to the contract, and we created a collection around it called the Lost Miners of the Ether. And so it's we commissioned a sculptor to do the art for us, which is going to be on-chain pixel art. We've already got some samples of that art out. The reason we did a sculptor is because we wanted to create this abstract to high fidelity approach to where when you put them in the small circle, they look real. And if you lay like a simple blur filter on them, you literally can't tell the difference between this 24 by 24 pixel art and a photograph. It's really, really unique. So it uses real skin tones, and but they're pretty cool in that regard. And I'm super bullish on that. And we also did the same thing on the proof of stake side. So we actually have the first proof of stake contract as well. And we did the exact same thing. We deployed the contract in the first block, instantly staked all the tokens, and we have a special plan that we're going to roll out around that one. So really, I'm just head down focused on those collections as far as something that we're super interested in. And then we have our normal business operations at BlokPax. We're building collectibles in Web3, and we create some gamified experiences. We've been doing it for over a year, have a really loyal and passionate follower base in BlokPax. And but the Lost Miners, it's a good proof of concept for people to show them that we're able to build something and create something where it doesn't have external dependencies, and it's a true digital collectible. Because I'm a big believer in that. I'm a big believer that we can do a lot of cool things with NFTs, but on the collectible side, you have to get to where there are some collectibles that people want to own for the long term for what they are, just like with sports cards, just like with comics and other things. If we can't get there, we can't create those things. Everything can't just be a speculative pump and dump. And that's what the space really was during the bull market. And so we're trying to differentiate and create some unique things, and the Lost Miners would fall into that. But outside of my own ecosystem, not a lot that I'm buying right now. I mean, I'm active within the Yuga ecosystem. I'm excited about what they're building in other side. I'm a big holder of that. That's kind of, and I'm also big in the proof ecosystem being built by Kevin Rose. So I'm not really out doing a whole lot of buying right now, but I'm pretty comfortable with the stuff that I am holding. I'm in, so basically Yuga, proof, and then my own ecosystem. Those are the three that I'm focused on.
Amazing. So I'm in those as well, but mate, just maybe if you could share with everybody BlokPax, a little bit more about BlokPax, because I did join one of your drops with releasing my IP for my CryptoPunk for that. I thought that was an interesting project as well. But maybe if you could just share with everybody what you're sort of working on there. And
Yeah, so we're trying to. So what you license your Punk into were the Punk trading cards, and that is a BlokPax project where we were the first ever to release a series of trading cards for the CryptoPunks, and we followed the trading card scarcity model. So for each Punk that was in that set, there's a one of one black hologram trading card. There are 10 golds. There are 25 reds. That follows the model that IRL sports cards and trading card games follow. And this was the first time that it was ever done, because until recently it really couldn't have been done, because Yuga released the IP rights to you as a holder. So we were able to officially license those rights from all the holders. And so the thesis behind why you would want to collect those is, if I'm right about what I said earlier, and punks go to $1 million, and that means that the punk franchise is known the world over. However, they're too expensive for everybody, right? So you know who Batman is, but you can't go buy Batman, but you can go buy a Batman comic book. And the same thing with the punks. If people, when digital ownership becomes more and more ubiquitous, and the punks, if I'm right, and they go to $1 million, people will then look and say, how can I get some exposure to that ecosystem? And I believe that the first ever trading card set for the CryptoPunks is a good way to do it. And remember what I told you, or actually, that might have been on the previous call I was on, but when you look at that Jackie Robinson card I told you about earlier, that 1947 rookie card, the team, the company that made that, they went out of business. But that doesn't make that Jackie Robinson rookie card any less desirable. And if BlokPax, heaven forbid, went out of business, there's no reason those CryptoPunk trading cards should not still be desired, because they were first. And they're the first ones that's your Punk's rookie card and everyone else that was in the set. And so I think that creates a really interesting collecting thesis, just like traditional sports cards do. And so if the gold editions of those that are out of 10, they've been selling in fiat dollars, $300 to $600 since we released that set. If the CryptoPunks go to $1 million, and they're selling, they're 300 to 600 today, when the CryptoPunks are $100,000. If CryptoPunks go to $1 million, what do those gold edition trading cards go to? What do the black hologram 101s go to that have gone for a couple of ETH? So I think there's a really nice collector thesis around that. Now, what we do at BlokPax is, when the way that people were introduced to trading cards back in the late 1800s, they packaged trading cards with cigarettes. So you would buy your cigarettes, everybody smoked at the time, and there were trading cards in there for baseball players. And then a little bit later, they started packaging them with candy, confections, gum. And so a kid would buy their pack of gum and they would get baseball cards. And then as they got those out into the market, that was a bit of a Trojan horse that brought those collectibles to people. And then they began collecting those and trading them and buying and selling. And next thing you know, you have a real market around that as a collectible item. With the punk cards, the Trojan horse that we had is that we did a sweepstakes where if you bought some of those trading cards, you had a chance to win over $250,000 worth of prizes, real prizes. And a lot of people wanted to just chase those prizes. And then when it's over, they're left holding these CryptoPunk trading cards. Next thing you know, they're like, okay, I want to build a set. I want to build a rainbow. I want one punk in all the colors, or I want to collect a whole set of these. I want to put the entire set together in the gold color parallel or the red parallel. And that's what happened. So so those punk trading cards now, they're out, and they're the first. And as the punk narrative rises, I think that the narrative around those trading cards can rise. And so that's what we want to do with BlokPax. We want to create interesting digital collectibles that don't have a roadmap, that don't have external dependencies. Some of them will license, some of them will create from scratch. And the way we'll get normies to come over and take a look is right now our main model is to pair it with a sweepstakes and to let people have a chance to win. Mainly, the main prize we give away are traditional sports cards, because we want traditional sports card collectors to be the ones that come in and give this a try. But when they come in and try that sweepstakes, we introduce them to Web3 tech. They get their first wallet. They get their first ETH. They trade NFTs back and forth amongst each other. They play the game. We have a pack ripping experience where they can rip the packs online, just like playing in a video game. People love that. So they're exposed to all this tech, and they're exposed to some digital collectibles. And a lot of these people, if you would have asked them 2 years ago if they would have ever placed any value on a CryptoPunk trading card, they would have looked at you like you had a horn growing out of your forehead. And now they're building a set of CryptoPunk trading cards. And I think that'll only grow and continue. So at BlokPax, that's what we want to do: create fun, gamified experiences to onboard the masses with a focus on onboarding IRL sports and trading card collectors, and then getting them into Web3 and exposing them to digital collectibles that we create that are no roadmap, no external dependency collectibles, like the Punk cards, like the Lost Miners, and that sort of thing.
Amazing. I think as you're sort of talking, I think there's is having a couple of things. One is having zero external dependencies is always a big thing that sort of resonates with me, right? There's going to be a certain point in time when you run out of steam and you can only offer so much utility. So definitely we're there with you. But I think the thing that you sort of bring from the collector space into the NFT space, which I think it's there, but it's not as intense as in the collector space. I think you really value subtle nuances. And so things like, when you're talking about lost miners, there was the last block on the proof of work sort of Ethereum sort of network. It's going to have some historical relevance and provenance there. And I think the way that you keep talking about, even the card that I licensed out, that was essentially my Punk's first rookie card on the blockchain, right? Does that have some value too? And those subtle nuances, which is a very heavy collector mindset, I think really hasn't fully taken off yet in NFT space. And I definitely could see that there's a space for it. I mean, one thing we didn't really unpack before was even one of your dev punks, right?
Sure.
So the first 1,000 CryptoPunks were basically owned by Matt and John. Do they carry more cultural and historical significance because they're actually owned by the developers of CryptoPunks, right? And I think they will. I don't think that narrative's really kicked off yet. But yeah, no, super interesting the way that you're thinking about it and bringing that into the space, Frenchie.
Yeah, I think a lot of the human behavior will carry over. Like we've seen for 100 years how humans want to collect. And the reality of it is that so far, one of the things that Kobe said, Crypto Cobain Kobe said, NFTs they're just shit coins with pictures, right? I think he may have said altcoins. I don't remember how he said it.
Yeah.
And in a lot of instances, he's right. They're really just about who's pumping them and trying to catch the pump and get off at the right time. Think about how many groups. I'm not in an alpha group. I had somebody, they said, yeah, you're in Proof. That's the biggest alpha group. I was like, man, if Proof is an alpha group, I got ripped off because I have gotten none of that out of there. Like, that's not what Proof is, man. But they're literally just groups that coordinate, pumps and when to get in, when to get out. And it's totally extractive. Right. And it's why it flushed out so many people that came into crypto during the bull run, chasing those riches. And those riches were reserved for the people who were super early and dumped on all of those people when they came in. And that's just a terrible cycle. But unfortunately, it's just the way the technology, it was it's just the way the technology was used. The technology has to mature. And when it does, and when more use cases come, this technology is so good. I have zero doubt at all in the future of NFTs. Zero doubt. I can't point to any one collection. I believe very strongly in the CryptoPunks, very, very strongly. But even the CryptoPunks, I could see some things that could possibly hurt them over time. It's possible. I don't think it'll happen, but I think it's possible. But what I don't see happening is I don't see the tech losing. The tech is going to win. And when the tech wins, part of it, a big piece of that narrative is going to be the simple idea that ownership of a digital asset. And once people own assets, they will find ways to collect them. And a lot of that collectability will be driven by nuance. That's the way it's been in everything. There's editions of coins where one little stamp, because it came off of a different minting machine, changes the value exponentially, one versus the other. There are sports cards where the difference in the grade, a Derek Jeter, his SP, which is his high gloss rookie card, That card, if you get it in a grade 9, you can buy it for $4,000. To get it in a grade 10, 1 point higher, it jumps all the way to about $500,000. And that's a subtle nuance. The cards are exactly the same. It's just subjectively somebody is saying that this one is 1 point better in grade than the other. Those nuances have not come to NFTs yet because NFTs have not matured. And that's where stories like I Believe the Lost Miners, stories like Squiggles, stories like the Punks, and then layer in the dev punk concept, layer in the provenance of who some of these people are that have owned assets. If you look at QQL, I think I saw where Tyler Hobbs had minted and sold one. That one that Tyler Hobbs minted and sold, I could make a tremendous a thesis on why that one will be worth 100 times more than any other QQL in the whole collection. And so those nuances, they will shake out over time, and I think we'll see more and more of that because it's human behavior, and the human behavior from collecting will end up in this space once the assets are more ubiquitous, once it's not all about just what's pumping today and what can I flip out of and find a greater fool. When people truly connect with these assets, that's when it'll happen. And I think punks are one of the few communities where they've really nailed that, where that community really does truly believe, right? I mean, when I tell you that I think they're going to $1 million, Max, I'm not just saying that. I believe that. So if I believe they're going to $1 million, why would I sell it to you tomorrow for 150 grand? Right? Now, if they pump overnight to 500 or 600 and it does it again in 3 months' time, I might sell and think I can get back in later. I'm taking a risk, but I believe long term that they're going to $1 million, and I don't think a lot of communities believe that. And the ones that do, and it doesn't have to be $1 million, if they just believe there's going to be a lot of value accretion because demand will come for what they're holding, then you're going to see those hands get a lot stronger. And a lot of these communities, they don't really believe that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't wait until it gets to $1 million. You got me excited now, Frenchie.
It's gonna do it, man. I believe it.
Right, and so when you're looking back at your NFT career to date, I guess what's your best win or loss, memorable win or loss that comes to mind?
My biggest win. The apes was pretty big, but I really crushed it with proof because when proof dropped, it was in December. He dropped the proof passes. Being an old Web 2 guy, I don't know Kevin Rose. I've spoken to him on like our town halls in proof about things, and last time I talked to him was around the CCO thing, so it was a little bit of a that conversation. It was not like we were yucking it up over a couple of beers. It was pretty serious stuff we were talking about. But so I don't know him, but I knew him from Dig, and I knew him from his podcasting and all those things. And I knew him from his network. I knew him from the fact that he spent time at Google Ventures. I knew that he had a Rolodex and had a lot of friends. And so when he released Proof and he said, it's going to be this Discord. And the thing that made me buy him is he said, and we're going to have IRL events, and we're going to get this group of people together. And then I'm going to, and he said something along the lines of, and then I'm paraphrasing here, and a lot of my friends are going to want to join this, that, and the other. So I was thinking, okay, so this is going to be a group where Kevin Rose is going to bring all these friends of his, and people are going to want these passes so they can go there and network. And so I bought them heavy. I mean, I bought like 15 passes right there as soon as they got done minting. And of course, boom, they blew up and they go to 130. I think I sold my last one. I still have two. I think I sold the last one that I sold. I think I sold it at 118, and I think I started selling them at around 70. So
Insane.
That was a pretty strong lick there. Yeah. But I've never hit I've never really done a lot of reveal chasing. So I've never hit like a super rare NFT from a reveal or had any of those kind of stories. Everything that I've done has just been stuff that I bought because I believed in it for a particular reason, and it did well. And my big wins are the apes, punks, proof. There's some other ones mixed in there, but those are the big ones.
Amazing. Jeez. Definitely went in with a lot of conviction back then too. And look, and to be fair, at that point in time when we were minting, there wasn't a great deal of information, right? I think there was a lot of FUD going on. You're going to pay 5 ETH to get into a Discord with a bunch of dudes, right? And nobody could sort of see the value. So yeah, well done.
Yeah, and part of it too is I wasn't in any of those discords where they were fudding it, so I didn't hear any of that. Right, so I formed my own thesis and I just jumped because I didn't listen to any of that noise. I didn't hear it. Like I didn't know they were fudding it.
Funny enough, it was actually the Punk Discord that was fudding it. But anyway, it was a good bet, mate. And then so when you look across the Twitter sphere, do you have like a favorite punk personality that you like tuning into and get a lot of value from?
I mean, I have some people that I interact with. I try not to get too caught up into a whole lot of people that would necessarily carry the label of influencer per se. But I mean, I'm really happy with the addition of Noah. And so certainly he's a punk. And so I think that he was a great hire, and I've enjoyed everything I've heard from him. About how he sees the punks and curating them. I think his time at Christie's is really, really good for the punks. That just that's the frame that he sees them through, and he sees them through this artistic, historic context. So I think that's I think he's a good one. And then just the others that are leading the punk community are people that I really like to like. I Lore Punk. I mean, she's great, and I've talked to her a few times on some different stuff. And so, those people that are more involved in actually moving the punks forward. I'm really interested in what the Yuga founders have to say, even though they own the IP at the top level now. But I mean, the whole space owes those folks they really help push the space to another level, and the investment that they brought in and the things that they've done. They've got a lot of wood to chop because there is a lot of external dependency in that side of the ecosystem, right? But
absolutely.
But I value their takes on things, and so that would be kind of some of the main folks that I would probably look to. But most of the people I look at are probably like builder types more than influencer types. I tend to try to listen to people that are in the similar shoes that I'm in, that they're fighting some of the same challenges that I'm in. It's easy to sit around and shit post on Twitter, man. It's hard to get in the trenches and build. It's hard to get in the trenches and build this stuff.
Absolutely.
And I've got my own battle scars. It's a tough space. I mean, I'm a 30-year entrepreneur. I haven't worked for another person since I was 24 years old. And I've had teams under me that entire time building at different products levels. And this space is hard, man. It's hard. Yeah. It's a tough space to build in.
Absolutely. Mate, just going back to the conversation about Noah, were you at the Punks Brunch in NFT NYC?
I wasn't. I was thinking of NFT. We had a COVID bout run through my household for that. So I was not there at all.
I see. So I was just curious to know what when you sort of said Noah is a good sort of addition. I sort of agree with that sentiment as well. But specifically, any sort of key
the outbound
things
stuff,
that he said that sort of resonated with you?
Yeah, so I did see when he stood up, I guess in that brunch, somebody videoed it. I did watch an iPhone video of that, so I heard that talk. I wasn't there, but I did hear it. And just the take of, we're not going to put the punks on lunchboxes, which I'll say this. I don't think there's a problem if a punk owner puts a punk on a lunchbox. I think that's beautiful, right? I mean, there's a difference in what the brand does at the top level and versus what holders do. And I think that's an interesting delineation. But I think he just has the fact that I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, it was on Twitter, and I made the comment that I said, what Yuga has done with the punks so far has been perfect. And then their counter me is, what have they done? I'm like, nothing. That's why it's perfect. I mean, they've started a newsletter. They've committed to fixing the front running and some of the stuff that's been in the marketplace, which, Larva Labs was going to fix that too. They had already started that development before they sold. So it kind of got shuttered, but that was in process. I mean, that's been a long time known problem. So getting that fixed where we get rid of the front running and the accepted offers, and then just a few little cleanups in the marketplace that could make it better or great. And that's really it. They're going to give us some 3D avatars in the other side, but hell, anybody could do that. That's not and not anybody can. I mean, I think that the plan would be that eventually you could come into other side with almost any avatar, any PFP, and use it in the game. So it's just that punks will have that. So they just haven't done anything. They just let them be punks. And the stuff we're seeing, like you created this PunkCast. I mean, what you're doing is advancing the punks forward. I like to think that what I did with the trading cards, advancing the punks forward. It's helping to spread the narrative. And more people, and I mean, who knows who's holding a gold parallel of one of these punks today that in 2 or 3 years buys a real punk, right? I mean, and maybe that what I did was their gateway. Maybe someone listens to your PunkCast today and it's, they've heard some of the things that you and I have talked about and they're like, well, I want to go buy one. So Yuga has just kind of gotten out of the way and then they support with the newsletter and that sort of thing. And I think I think they've done a great job. So, and I think, and again, if Noah's the guy that's at the top of that, he's been the main one that's kept hands off.
Amazing. Yeah. I think it's spot on. I think they've done a really great job just trying to listen to the community and just really try and get a sense of it before they actually do anything. And maybe doing nothing is probably the best thing for now, but it'll be definitely interesting to sort of see what happens next. And then if you were to describe punk culture in a few words, how would you describe it?
So I think punk culture went through a couple of different phases. And so if we want to talk about what it is today, I think punk culture has kind of come back around full circle. And a lot of people that are holding punks and using punks today are people that maybe had come ups through the bull cycle. They were able to get some money squirreled aside and then punks pulled back. And a lot of those people, then they were aspirational to get into the punks and they bought one. And I think they really have a lot of pride in the punk. And that sort of thing. There was a period there where, the punks during the bull run, especially as the apes began to ascend, at that time I owned both of them. And I saw it firsthand, kind of the apes really kind of used the punks almost as their enemy, right? That they were the established ones. And now this was their turn, right? Their turn to flip the punks. And it was part of their narrative. And the punks got baited into that. They did. They got baited into that, and they kind of it gave some of the bulletin board material. And as a community, a lot of people came off of their punks. Didn't see nearly as many of them being used in PFPs kind of during some of that cycle. Saw a lot of punks jumping into other things to try to chase. Some of the things that were going on. There were some things that were born out of the punks, that some projects that really kind of got their lift because. I don't know if it's the Punks Discord or Telegram or what. I was really kind of tuned out to that stuff, but I know there were some things, I won't name the projects, you probably know some of them too, that really kind of had some big run-ups because the punks kind of embraced them. And I think a lot of that was driven by the fact that it was watching these apes and some of this other stuff, and the punks were relatively boring at the time, right? If anything, they kind of had that peak in like July 2021, and then they started kind of pulling back. And then as the apes ascended, I think a lot of people started looking for other things that they could get gains in. It's not that they necessarily dumped out of their punks, but they just started going away from some of that culture that made the punks what they were. And so I would describe it today much more welcoming, much more close-knit. I feel like there's a shared, much more of an esprit de corps that we all want to see the punks, move forward and do great things. And it's starting to feel like it's kind of got some of those vibes from when I first got in, because I was in and I felt all that for probably about 6 months or so. Then we went through this really weird period of the peak of the bull run where the punks maybe got more fragmented. And then as the bear market really settled in, you had some consolidation back into people that really wanted to own the punks. People kind of went back to what they were comfortable with. And I feel like the punks have kind of level set and reestablished as that kind of, really good core community again. And so it feels good right now. So to sum that up, I would say that it's overall, we're not all holding hands singing Kumbaya every day, but it's overall, it's a good welcoming community where punks want to work together, want to collaborate, support each other through the bear market. The punks have a good vibe right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. It feels like a nice energy on Discord and on Twitter. I mean, especially in this bear market too, I think you know who the tourists and the settlers are, and the punks are still here, and most of them, just like you, are absolutely building. And so they don't have a lot of time to go on Twitter and shitpost all the time and engage and do all the other bits and pieces. Most of them are actually builders. And
I
so,
agree. Yep, for sure.
so I really love that sort of vibe about them. And yeah, it's a really nice sort of energy. And hopefully we'll position ourselves better for the next bull run.
Yep, hopefully so.
And if you could pass on a message to the next owner of your punk, your primary punk, what would you like to say to them?
He's a badass punk. Take care of him. Is a pretty good chance. I mean, I'm not saying that I won't sell things, because I will. I'm not afraid to sell. I'm an OG collector of things, and when things get to where I feel they're overpriced, I will. I'm not afraid to sell. I'm not afraid to buy back in if I feel that. But I would say there's probably a pretty good chance, if you have this punk, that I'm dead and gone. So take good care of it. My kids probably sold it off at auction. Now the others,
Excellent.
we'll see, but this one, pretty good chance that I'm not here anymore.
So Frenchie, that's sort of a really fun chat we've had today. Any sort of final closing comments on your side, and I guess just how can people connect with you and find you?
Yeah, I'm ETH Frenchie on Twitter. Pretty easy to find. I'm out there, and we're definitely building. I've got a great team of folks around me that I stand on the shoulders of giants every day and look tall, but it's really the team that's the ones that are really doing all the cool stuff that we're doing. But I do think we have some innovative approaches to things, and I think if you dig in, there's some cool stuff there. I'd love to have, certainly out of the punk community, welcome the punks to come in on all the stuff we're doing. We're going to do series 2 of the punk trading cards. It'll probably be a Q1 thing. And actually, we talked about maybe going ahead and starting to work on getting those folks lined up a little earlier this time around. Appreciate you saying that you would recommend it to other people when Laura asked you. That was real nice of you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And so we'll definitely be doing that. So we'd love to get some punk support around that. And just the other stuff we're doing, love to have as many of the punks and anyone else that's listening. We're trying to build a nice, accessible ecosystem and trying to advance the whole space forward.
Amazing. Frenchie, this is fun, mate. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with us. And we'll definitely reconnect soon.
Thanks so much for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. And good luck as you continue the PunkCast. It's a great idea. And I look forward to listening and hearing stories from more punks.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And guys, that's a wrap for another episode of PunkCast, and we'll be back next week with another punk. Bye for now.